We're now joined by former Save South Africa convener Sipho Pityana, and he joins us now via our video link. Mr. Pityana, thank you so much for your time this evening here in SABC News. Let's get your reaction from the address by President Cyril Ramaphosa.
Well, good evening to you and your viewers. Quite a reassuring statement in terms of where the Government of National Unity is going. I hear that everybody, or a large number of commentators, actually refer to the fact that there's nothing new. Interestingly, that's exactly what will be reassuring in that the broad initiatives of policy directions that have been taken by the Ramaphosa administration will see the light of day, which are critical to turning the country around and improving its prospects. But there are some nuanced positions that suggest certain new directions that some may have missed.
When it comes to the statement overall, what does it say about the Government of National Unity?
It basically says that a pragmatic approach has been taken, which would emphasize the three pillars that had been highlighted by the President. Would note that he placed a great deal of emphasis on inclusive growth, and his articulation of the concept of inclusion is consistent with the constitutional imperatives of ensuring that a democratic government of South Africa prioritizes those that have been marginalized in the past, the poor, and not just end discrimination, but ensure that as the economy grows, it doesn't just benefit a few, but benefits the broader society. And I think that he went to great lengths with regard to that. The fact that that's an outcome of a statement of a Government of National Unity suggests that what we thought was a great deal of divide amongst the partners there is in fact has been settled, that we will continue with the trajectory of inclusion as we pursue growth, and that there would be no dichotomy in terms of growth versus transformation. So these are seen in tandem, and that's very encouraging because that's a very divisive issue in society. The second aspect is that Operation Vulindlela and structural reforms in the economy, which are so critical to turning the economy around, have been confirmed as critical elements that will drive economic restructuring. It's been quite specific about referencing some of the key pillars that would drive economic restructuring, which means that we're not going to be sitting somewhere and trying to think anew what needs to be done. There's going to be a great deal of continuity in terms of policy trajectory. That should reassure many in business, labor, and the markets, because we've been engaged in these conversations over the period of his tenure, his first term in government.
And you spoke a lot about the priority areas here that this Government of National Unity says that it will be focusing on, and of course putting a lot of emphasis there when it comes to inclusive growth. How important is inclusive growth in our country, particularly when you look at the results of the 2024 elections, and this being a ripple effect, because if there's no inclusive growth, we continue to see a high unemployment rate, we continue to see poverty. So how important is inclusive growth, especially towards our economy, and what the President basically emphasized on the issue around job creation?
Well, the biggest failure of our democratic project is the fact that poverty continues to be as high as it is, and that we are the most unequal country in the world. That certainly is a drawback for us, and anybody who seeks to drive an economic transformation agenda must be concerned about that. And the key driver of inclusive economic development is growth. But the fact that there is referencing of inclusive growth suggests that there's an appreciation that you can have growth, and we have experienced this in South Africa, where growth happens without the benefit of many others. It can leave others behind. In other words, there could be many that are out of jobs. There could be many that are not in, whose businesses are not at the center of the benefits that come with growth. So the growth trajectory that is emphasized here is inclusive. One of the key instruments to deal with inequality and poverty is employment. It is the biggest economic distributor in any society. So our growth direction should be have all the considerations of ensuring that we create jobs. So the emphasis on that as a consensus position of the Government of National Unities would suggest that the newly elected, 70% at least of those that are newly elected into Parliament will agree that the resources of the state through the budget must be deployed in ensuring and making a success of this inclusive growth agenda.
And of course, when it comes to the opposition, we always see them after some sort of an address by President Cyril Ramaphosa saying that this is just a wish list and, you know, some of these things are never achievable. From your observation, do you think that, you know, what the president has put out through this government of national unity, that these are the benefits that can be reaped for the country, especially in building a better tomorrow?
Well, one of the important things that is an outcome of this, from my perspective, is the fact that it clearly does suggest that there isn't much of a difference between the various political parties who were at different places before May 29 in regard to policy direction of the country. There may have been differences with regard to execution. And one of the things that maybe we're focusing less on in the statement that the president has made is a shift to medium-term planning and shifting from medium-term strategic framework. It may be that the conversations, from my reading, is that the conversation between the Government of National Unity is that you have this national development plan, but it is less than a plan, actually. It's just a statement of vision. And what the medium-term strategic plan will be is that it will begin to provide more details around that and enable effective rollout and present to society realistic outlines of what can be achieved at what time, backed up with resources. And this has been one of the major lacking elements in government's programs, despite very good policy frameworks that it has developed.